Hey everybody. Welcome to another special edition of Books and Gratitude. I am your host, Shelly Meyer, and I am so happy that you're here. I just wanted to take a moment and tell you why I'm rewriting and reissuing the letter series. Um, Today's episode is especially meaningful to me because I'm talking about a series that has been part of my writing life for, oh, close to 20 years. Um, and I want to explain why I chose to come back to these books and what I hope to accomplish, and which characters are staying at the center of the story, and what the newly expanded series is going to look like. For my readers who already know Sarah, Andrew, Trevor, Chris, and Karen, and the rest of the characters, these books might feel like a reunion with old friends. Complicated friends, maybe, but they're familiar ones. For new readers, this is going to be a chance to meet these characters through a stronger, fuller, and more emotionally developed version of the stories. The original version of the letter was written during a very different period of my life and writing career. And like most authors, I've grown a lot since then. I've written more books. I've learned more about pacing, dialogue, characterization, emotional development. I've learned about continuity and generally what makes readers feel connected to a story or more connected. I've also become more aware of the difference between just moving a plot forward and letting readers uh, truly experience what the characters are feeling. When I returned to those original books, I still loved the heart of the story. I didn't want to change the core at all. I love Sarah. She's she's me. I love Andrew, and my fans know who Andrew is based on. You might get that sense from the books if you're a new reader. I love Trevor. Um, and again, my fans already know who that's based off of, but new readers will figure that out too. And I love Chris. He's one of the most pivotal characters in the entire series. I love the friendship between him and Sarah, their romantic tension, the huge misunderstandings, the almost going too far, their banter, the jealousy. There's a lot of emotional complications between them, and the moments when these characters wanted to do the right thing but didn't always know what the right thing was. That foundation was there, and it's still there. But I could also see places where the books could be stronger. Some scenes moved a little too quick. Others needed more context. Certain conversations needed to sound more natural, and important emotional moments deserved more room to breathe. Some of the characters needed fuller introductions and clearer physical descriptions. I wasn't as savvy as back then as I am now. More writing classes and things like that have definitely helped me. There's certain transitions between the books that needed to be smoother so the readers could follow the character's emotional journey without feeling like something had happened off the page. And I think in the original series, there were things that just sort of popped in. And I think my readers were like, where did this come from? But I think most importantly, I wanted every major character in the story to receive the attention they deserved because they're all important to me. And for my current fans, I'm pretty sure they're important to you too. Um, that includes Chris, and it also includes Karen. Um, when people think about the letter series, they might immediately think of Sarah and Andrew because their relationship is at the emotional center of this story. But Sarah and Andrew's story doesn't exist all by itself. Chris plays an essential role in shaping Sarah's decisions, in Andrew's reactions, and the emotional direction of the series. He isn't just somebody who I placed in the story to create jealousy. He's important. He isn't disposable, or, an obstacle. He's part of Sarah's life, and he's been part of Sarah's life long before Andrew ever entered the picture. He's part of her emotional confusion and part of the reason the relationships in this series become so complicated. And I wanted to focus on that romantic complication for everybody in the stories. And Chris represents a different kind of connection for Sarah. There's history there, and my fans already know about that history. There's attraction, definitely. There is comfort and familiarity between them, but there's also uncertainty. Like, she's not sure about him even before Andrew. But he enters the story right when she is emotionally vulnerable. That may not be the best thing, but he's always there. He's questioning what she wants, and he's trying to make sense of her feelings for Andrew and for him. And that makes him incredibly important to the story, and he needs to be there, like him or not. He offers Sarah something different from what Andrew offers her. And I don't want to say that might be better for her, because if you know the story, maybe Andrew's too much. I'm not going to say anything. Um, but Andrew and Sarah share a powerful emotional connection. It's like electricity whenever they touch each other, whenever they kiss. It's just like thunder and lightning. Um, but their relationship is filled with a lot of miscommunication, and that's not all their fault. There's a lot of fear, mostly hers. There's pride, there's distance, obviously, and then there's trust issues. And my fans already know about these trust issues, and things kind of get complicated through the series. And for Sarah, Chris can sometimes feel more immediate. He's there for her. He's available when she needs him. He understands certain parts of Sarah that Andrew might not always understand or might not know how to reach. That doesn't make the relationship simple by any means, but it kind of makes it more complicated. But a really good story has lots of complications. Chris forces Sarah to confront questions she might avoid, and there's a lot of those in here, and she does avoid them, and he does too. Um, is she holding on to Andrew because she really believes they belong together? Is she afraid to let go of what might have been? Is she does she want the safe choice? Can she even trust Andrew? And can Andrew trust her? Those are the two big complications in the story. And you have to read them, um, to figure out what those are. And really, does Chris represent a genuine future for her, or is he somebody she turns to because Andrew has hurt her, or she thinks Andrew has hurt her? Those questions kind of matter throughout the entire series. And they also give Chris some emotional weight, actually, a lot of emotional weight. He isn't just standing at the edge of Sarah and Andrew's story. His choices truly affect both of them. And his presence changes the way Andrew sees Sarah. And it changes the way Sarah sees herself, honestly. And it really creates moments of comfort and guilt and frustration, a lot of tenderness, and a whole lot of conflict. Chris also brings out sides of Sarah that readers might not otherwise see. Around Andrew, she can become defensive because she cares so deeply about what he thinks of her. And around Chris, she might feel more understood in the moment, but that understanding comes with its own complications. Um, she has to determine whether comfort is the same thing as love. She has to consider whether chemistry is enough. And she and Andrew have a lot of chemistry, and sometimes it's intense. Um, she also has to decide whether she's moving towards something real or just trying to escape the pain of something unfinished. Um, those are deeply human qualities, and I think that we've all faced these questions in our lives. And these questions are also part of the reason why I wanted to revisit this series. It's my first series. Everybody knows it's based on a letter that I wrote to a movie star at the time, and my friends know exactly who that is. Um, in the original books, some of Chris's importance may not have been explored as fully as it could have been. So I wanted to touch on that quite a bit. And during the rewrite, I wanted to make sure he felt like a complete person rather than just a device used to push Sarah and Andrew together or pull them apart. Because there's a lot of that going on too. And my readers deserve to understand why Sarah is drawn to him. They also deserve to understand why his involvement creates such a serious emotional problem. He matters because Sarah's feelings for him have consequences in a lot of ways. They affect her relationship with Andrew on a huge scale. They affect Andrew's ability to trust her, and they influence decisions that carry over from one book into the next. And one of the central conflicts in Yours Truly involves Sarah and Chris crossing a line in their relationship, and it causes the snowball effect. And that moment can't feel random. And in the first book, it didn't. It really didn't. When I originally wrote it, it was one huge 900-page book. And now, in like 3 years ago, I split it up into three. And I added some stuff to it. But um, it still didn't feel whole to me. Um, and now it's grown from everything that came before it. Sarah's pain, Andrew's behavior, her behavior, Chris's behavior, Karen's behavior, the confusion between Sarah and Andrew, and Sarah and Chris's place in Sarah's life, and also Sarah's need to feel wanted and understood. And everybody wants that, right? At the same time, that choice has consequences. Throughout the book, all the choices have consequences. And Andrew shows up afterwards, and suddenly Sarah is forced to face the emotional fallout. Andrew tells her he doesn't know whether he could trust her. Now, this is after she crossed the line with Chris. And, at the very end of the letter, you know, you know exactly what happens. And at the beginning of Yours Truly, this is why she crosses the line. So when he doesn't know whether he can trust her, he leaves. They break up. And that moment becomes super important, not just because of what Sarah has done, but because of everything Sarah and Andrew have failed to say to each other. And Chris is at the center of that turning point. Without him, the story would lose a major source of emotional conflict. I mean, there wouldn't really be any trust issues from the very beginning. But more importantly, it would lose one of the relationships that forces Sarah to grow. And he does help her that. And even he grows. He becomes more emotionally stable. And I wanted the rewritten books to give Chris the presence he deserves. I wanted his conversations with her to feel meaningful and to actually be meaningful. And I wanted his motivations to be clear. Now they were mainly clear in the original books, but these these are better. Let's just say that. I want my readers to understand why Sarah cares for him, even if they ultimately believe she belongs with Andrew. And you, as a reader, can decide that for yourself. And I wanted Chris to feel like somebody whose heart could also be hurt. Romantic conflict is more powerful when every person involved feels real. And to me, they are. They're my people. So it's easy to write a character who exists only to be rejected. I mean, that's super easy to do. It's like one and done. But it's much more interesting to write somebody readers might actually understand and sympathize with or even root for sometimes. And Chris complicates the question of who Sarah should choose because he isn't just wrong for her in every possible way. He's not wrong for her, honestly. Um, he matters to her and she matters to him. And that's what makes the situation painful. And it's also what makes him pivotal. And the same is true for Trevor. He's not a love interest of Sarah's at all. He has his own place in the emotional structure of the series. He's usually the person who sees what others are trying not to see. He notices the tension and he says something. He understands more than Sarah and Andrew might realize. And he brings humor and a little bit of sarcasm and loyalty, definitely. But he also carries his own emotional perspective. And then there's Karen. We all have to have an antagonist. Every book has to have one. She creates one of the most important turning points in the first book. The first book still ends with Sarah walking in on Andrew and Karen kissing. That's not ever going to change. That is what starts the snowball effect of everything. Trevor is there as well, which matters because Sarah isn't alone in what she's witnessing. The cliffhanger remains unchanged in substance because it launches the emotional conflict that follows. You have to have that starting point. It affects Sarah's trust in Andrew, and it changes how she interprets his behavior. Like, is this something that is always going to happen? And she's afraid for that. It influences the choices she makes later on, including the choices involving Chris. And that's why continuity has been one of the most important parts of this rewrite. My readers remember where characters were standing when all of this went down, and they remember who witnessed an important moment. And all readers of any author remember these things, little details that most people would just, not even think about, but real fans of these books are going to remember these little details. They remember what somebody said during an argument and how they said it and what happened in the final pages of the previous book. So when those details don't carry forward right, it can pull readers out of the story and you lose fans. I don't want that. And I wanted every book to flow naturally into the next. I also wanted the emotional consequences to continue. If Sarah is hurt in book one, she can't simply behave as though nothing happened in the next, you know? And if Andrew loses trust, that distrust has to affect his choices. And if Chris becomes emotionally involved, his presence can't disappear whenever it's inconvenient. And I think in the original book, like the very beginning, almost 20 years ago, I kind of lost that. Um, and when I rewrote it into three books, I fixed it a little bit. But now that I'm older and wiser, I I think that I've nailed it. So the characters have to carry what happened to them all through the entire series. And this is what makes a series feel connected. Each book is connected and it makes sense. I've also added more depth to Sarah's personal history. The readers are now going to learn more about the 5 years Sarah spent working as a production assistant on a television series called Supernaturalists in Vancouver, British Columbia. Sound familiar? The experience doesn't replace or alter the original plot. However, in Love Always, this is mentioned quite a bit, and it wasn't mentioned in the original books because Love Always was written much later after the first two. And there were new things going on in my life that I wanted to bring to the book. So instead, you know, instead of replacing anything, it gives her a richer, deeper background. And it helps explain how she handles pressure in the life of, the public eye, kind of, and show business and that kind of thing, and how she relates to different personalities and divas and things like that, like Karen, and how certain parts of her past shaped the woman she's become. And anybody who listens to my other podcast, Supernaturalist, might recognize that I have a little personal affection for the idea of Sarah working behind the scenes on a supernatural TV series. So that's once I discovered the phenomenon that is supernatural, I implemented that into Love Always and changed some characters around, changed some actors around, things like that. But if you're a fan of the show, you can kind of see them. Um, so that allowed me to bring in small moments from what that world without changing the main story. I just needed to insert that information into earlier books. That's it. And the rewrite also gave me the opportunity to make the overall tone more consistent. And I made it more rom-com than it was before. I mean, we had the humor of Trevor and the sarcasm of Mary, but um, there's more. There's more now, and it doesn't take away from the heart of the story. Um, at its heart, though, the letter series is still romantic, it's still emotional, still funny, funnier, and a lot messy. Let's just say that. These characters do not always make perfect choices, and they shouldn't. They misunderstand each other pretty much at every turn. Um, they become jealous. They protect themselves when they should be honest with each other. They say the wrong things, and sometimes they don't say anything at all. Sarah can be pretty impulsive, and Andrew is kind of guarded. And Chris can become caught between what Sarah says she wants and what her actions reveal most of the time. And Trevor might see things more clearly than the people directly involved. So he's that good person in the middle who sees things and says things. Karen creates the conflict. Let me rephrase that. Karen is the conflict. But she also has her own reasons for the choices she makes. None of them are even remotely perfect, and they were never supposed to be. I wanted the new additions to embrace that humanity while giving readers stronger pacing, more natural dialogue, more humor, more deep emotion, and greater romantic tension. And now I want to kind of talk about the structure of the rewritten series and the new book titles. The first book is The Letter, Part 1, obviously. This is where Sarah and Andrew's story begins. It introduces their connection, the friendships surrounding them, the romantic possibilities, and the complications that are going to continue throughout the series. It also establishes the relationship with Trevor, with Chris, and Karen, um, and they all become important to everything that follows. And as I mentioned, the book still ends with that pivotal cliffhanger. Sarah walks in on Andrew and Karen kissing. That moment changes everything Sarah believes about Andrew and their relationship and what their future might have been. The second book is Andrew and Sarah. This book continues directly from the letter. It explores the emotional fallout from that ending and gives Sarah and Andrew more room to confront the feelings and the misunderstandings and trust issues between them. Now, this is the book that ends with the cliffhanger. So the letter and ends, it's kind of like a continuation. Andrew and Sarah's continuation of the letter. At the end of Andrew and Sarah, that is when she sees Andrew kissing Karen. So I misspoke before. Um, the title is just simple because this part of the series belongs to them. Um, it's like the intensity of their relationship before anything bad happens, um, and how quickly the relationship intensifies. It's about who Sarah and Andrew are individually, what they mean to each other, and whether their relationship can really survive the damage that has already been done. But even in a book called Andrew and Sarah, the other characters are still important. Chris doesn't stop mattering because Sarah and Andrew are at the center. His relationship with her continues to affect how she sees Andrew and how Andrew sees her. Um, Trevor is still a part of the story as well, although he doesn't come in until kind of the end. He brings his own loyalty, humor, and his insight. And the third book, Yours Truly, that's where things start to go downhill, I should say. The book continues the romantic and emotional complications of the series. She sees Andrew kissing Karen and she leaves and she's, no, we're done. I'm sorry. She gives the ring back. Oops, I might have spoiled something. Um, it's their relationship is tested in so many ways here, and Chris becomes very important. The choices she makes with him have real emotional consequences. Oh, so many emotions. And Andrew's trust for her is damaged. And even though he's still irrevocably in love with her, there's he doesn't see that they were broken up. It just, she is forced to consider what she really wants and why she keeps finding herself pulled between this safety of the relationship with Chris and the major intensity of her relationship with Andrew. And Chris isn't just standing between the two of them. He's part of Sarah's emotional journey. And I'm telling you, it's emotional. He actually makes her question whether the life she imagined with Andrew is still possible and whether she should continue waiting for Andrew to become the man she wants him to be and she needs him to be. His world is so very different from hers, and that shows. And it shows a lot more in the new books. The title "Yours Truly" fits the series because letters, communication, love, and the things people struggle to say are really woven through these stories. And I did that at the beginning because they're all, the ending to love letters. Yours truly, love always, sincerely, stuff like that. With all my heart. Um, because it started out with a letter. And how do you end a letter? Love always. That's what I'm saying. People sign letters with words like yours truly, but the characters in the series kind of struggle to fully belong to anybody, including themselves. And the fourth book is With All My Heart, which is a continuation of yours truly. And yours truly ends at a very, very deep moment. Very deep moment. Um, she's given up, you know, um, and he just can't take it. He sees his heart is ripped apart. So that's all I'm saying about that. But it expands the story and it allows the emotional consequences of the previous books to develop more more fully. And this book explores what it really means to love somebody with your whole freaking heart. I don't know if you've ever felt that way, but that's kind of what their relationship is. Um, and love isn't just about attraction and happy moments, not any real relationship anyway. It's it's about trust and forgiveness. It's about vulnerability, being honest with yourself and others, and deciding whether to remain open after you've been hurt. Like, do you want to do that? That's the question. And at this point, Sarah's choices involving both Andrew and Chris have shaped all three of them. There are wounds that cannot be ignored, and there are questions that have to be answered. And there are relationships that can't continue in the same uncertain state forever. The fifth book is Love Always, and that was the end of the original series. I've always loved that title because it sounds like the closing line of a letter. That was the whole premise behind Yours Truly and Love Always and With All My Heart and yada yada. So it also expresses one of the central themes of the entire series. Love changes. It becomes complicated, and it can be tested by distance and jealousy, by fear, bad timing, betrayal, and lots of mistakes. And people can love each other and still cause each other pain. It happens in real life. It's not nice, it's messy, but it happens. And they can love each other and still make the wrong choices. They can love each other and still need to grow before they're actually ready to build a future together. And I think that's where I made some different choices with the new series is they need to grow emotionally. I mean, they're all adults, but they have baggage. They all have baggage. But even after everything, that love is still there and it's still intense. So the current lineup for the new series is The Letter, Part One. There's Andrew and Sarah, Yours Truly, With All My Heart, and Love Always. But there might be one more. I'm considering writing a sixth book called Always and Forever. And I say may because the story is still taking shape in my head. I've thought about this. I thought about it after I wrote Love Always. Um, but I didn't want to write another book just to make the series longer. That's not the intention. But I think there's more of the story to tell. The way that Love Always ends, there could definitely be some more to the story. Um, there is an emotional reason to return to Sarah, Andrew, Chris, Trevor, and the world that they share. But I keep thinking about what might happen after Love Always. Do Sarah and Andrew finally get married? After everything they've been through, are they really ready to make that commitment? Can they leave all of that jealousy and that fear and this mistrust behind? Or would marriage just bring new issues they haven't considered? And I also keep thinking about Andrew's family in London. Does Andrew finally take Sarah to England to meet them as he said that he was going to? And what exactly would it mean for Sarah to enter that part of his life? She knows the Hollywood part of it. She's kind of become ensconced in it, and she kind of becomes the "do you know who I am" girl. Um, she doesn't like who she's becoming. So is that going to be an issue when she meets his parents? Would she feel welcomed by them, even though they have told Andrew repeatedly that they like her? She has talked to them on the phone and on FaceTime. So, um, would she feel out of place there? I mean, as an American at all, like visiting her fiance's parents. And would meeting his family help her understand him better? I think it probably would. Um, it would definitely reveal parts of him that she hasn't ever seen. His sisters will probably have stories. Um, and of course, there's the question of Chris. What happens to him after Sarah makes her final choice? Does he move on? Honestly, I think that he should. Um, yes, he's still gonna be in love with her for until the end of time, but he needs to find somebody that that he can be with. And I think I know who that's gonna be. I do. I think he is gonna find love on his own, and I think I know who it is. Um, and yes, he's going to stay part of Sarah's life, even though he's in Colorado and she lives in Los Angeles now. Um, I want to ask if the complicated history between all of them can ever really settle into a friendship. And I think with the emotional growth that everyone is seeing, I think that that is a possibility. I think I think so. He's been too important to the series for his story to be dismissed or forgotten. And I don't want to forget Mary either. She plays a big role in bringing Andrew back to sanity after his mess in London, after Sarah breaks up with him for like the third time. So I feel like if I write Always and Forever, I would want to honor what Chris has meant to Sarah and what his presence has meant to the story at large. And I want to do the same for Trevor. I mean, even though he's in Los Angeles and his story is more involved in Love Always. Mary is still in Denver, but I want to show her life, and what she does. I mean, she's pretty independent, but I want to make sure that she gets a place in the story as well. And I really want to show what happens after the romantic resolution. Like, it's something that readers don't always get to see. There's always that, you know, happily ever after. But what does that actually look like for two people who have spent so long misunderstanding each other? Uh, can they choose each other? When the book ends and we assume that they live happily ever after, is that really a thing? How about happy for now? Um, can Sarah and Andrew build a stable life together? I think I could write it that way. They deserve to be happy. They've been through so much shit. Uh, I can make it to where they learn how to communicate before things fall apart again. Um, I think, you know, now that they live together, they both need to trust what they have and not try to fight it. And I think that they can create a future without letting the past get in the way. They've grown so much in such a short amount of time that why can't they? You know? So maybe Always and Forever would answer those questions. I think they would. Maybe it would take her to London with him. Maybe there would be a wedding. Maybe there would be more unexpected complications. I mean, there have to be a few. We'll have to see. Um, maybe a pregnancy scare. I don't know. For now, though, Always and Forever is a possibility rather than a promise. But I do love that title. It feels like a natural continuation of Love Always. Love Always is a feeling. Always and Forever is a commitment. And that distinction could become the heart of the sixth book. And one of the most rewarding parts of rewriting this series has been returning to the characters I created all those years ago and realizing I still care so much about them. Like I said, they're my people, and they've stayed with me. Their relationship still still interests me. If it didn't, I wouldn't be rewriting it. Their mistakes, they still frustrate the hell out of me, and they don't listen to me. And their possibilities still excite me. I still wonder about their futures. So revisiting the series has also reminded me that rewriting, it's not the same thing as saying the original work had no value. I think it did. I mean, they mattered because they were part of my journey. They represent who I was as a writer at the time. I knew what I wanted to say. I didn't have all the skills yet. Um, so, without those early versions, this new editions wouldn't even exist. So sometimes we writers look back at older work and notice every sentence they would change. We see every scene that moved too quick or too slow, and we hear every line of dialogue that could be stronger. There's quite a few in this one, but again, I'm a much better writer now. We recognize places where the character needed more depth, more of a story. But growth doesn't erase the value of where we began. These original books taught me how to finish a story. They taught me how to create characters readers care about. And they taught me how to continue writing even when I wasn't sure where the journey was going to go. I'm glad that it brought me here. These rewrites are kind of my way of honoring those beginnings while still applying everything I've learned since then. Um, and I don't think that the books would be the same if I had started them now. Um, they're really also an opportunity to honor characters like Chris and even Karen, whose importance deserves to be fully felt. Um, so that's where I am with this. There's a maybe for always and forever. Let's just say that. With that, I am brought to today's gratitude moment. I am grateful for second chances to do this. I'm grateful that stories can be revisited. I'm grateful that characters can surprise us after years that after we've created them, you know? I'm grateful that creativity doesn't have an expiration date. That would just, I would lose my mind if I couldn't be creative. I'm grateful for every reader who discovered the original books and every person who encouraged me to keep writing. You know who you are, and I appreciate every one of you. I'm grateful for the chance to introduce Sarah, Andrew, Trevor, Chris, and the rest of the characters to a new group of readers. I'm excited to hear what you all think. I'm also grateful for growth. We aren't required to remain the same people or creators we were 10 or 20 years ago. I am certainly not. I have learned, I have revised, and I have returned to something I once completed and recognizes that it still has more possibilities. I love that about books, about writing books. That applies to books, but it also applies to life. I can rewrite any part of my life and change the things that happen to me, and we can all do that. And sometimes we need to return to an old dream with new wisdom, and that's what I've done. Sometimes we need to forgive ourselves for not knowing then what we know now. But life is a learning process, right? And sometimes we need to look at a person or a relationship or even part of ourselves and ask whether the story is really finished. And 99% of the time, it's going to be no, it's not finished. And sometimes the most meaningful thing we can do is take something we already love and give it the care it always deserved. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do with the letter series. And I hope readers will feel that I care throughout the new editions. The story is still true to its original heart. The core story is still the same, but the characters have more depth. The dialogue is more natural. The pacing is definitely stronger. Continuity is clearer. Sarah's history has greater context, and I'm thankful that I did that. Chris's role has the emotional weight that it deserves. And the complete series has room to become the funny, romantic, complicated, and heartfelt journey I always believed it could be. I want to thank you for allowing me to share this process with you. Please remember to like and subscribe to Books and Gratitude and Supernaturalist so you don't miss any future episodes about books and the supernatural and gratitude. And the stories behind my stories and other authors' stories. New episodes of Books and Gratitude arrive every Sunday. New episodes of my other podcast, Supernaturalist, arrive every Saturday. So until next time, keep reading, keep believing in second chances and third chances. I mean, we're not limited. And remember that sometimes the best stories are the ones we're brave enough to revisit. I'm so thankful that I did. I'm Shelly Meyer, and this has been Books and Gratitude. Have a wonderful day.